RFK Jr. came in knowing what he wanted the science to say.
Exactly.
And it sounds like what is happening is that he is making pronouncements and then finding things to back it up. I mean, this is stuff that affects real people's lives, vaccines,
We're in National Immunization Awareness
immunization.
Month.
I hear the criticism from this person. I just have to say, he did use the term pregnant people in his resignation.
Oh, come on.
And I'm sorry, if that is like the way you're presenting information, I have questions about your credibility.
Scott, it's so amazing.
It's not a ruse. He really wrote it down.
We are talking
about this guy's not credible to me. That's all I'm telling you.
Scott, are you serious?
Come on.
No, he is not credible.
No. Are you serious that this is
yes, he did write it.
That of all the things that we're talking about here, immunizations, vaccines, autism, the research about on communicable diseases, on cancer, and you are the most concerned about someone's use of the word people.
Yeah, because
that's the most important thing.
Because you were just complaining about the politicization of science,
that's
and
not
I can't think of politicization of science more than that, or of what some of these people said to the American people during COVID. So the credibility of some of these folks who are complaining. Look.
Okay, so
I'm complaining, and I'm a public health and preventive medicine physician. We in the NAACP are complaining, right? And we are an iconic civil rights and human rights organization. There is reason to complain, Scott. You have a person who, during his confirmation hearings, said that black people had a different immune system, that we should follow a different immunization schedule. You have a person who has spent his life undermining science, credible science. The people who walked out of the CDC, the people who resigned, these are not flippant folks. These are not people who did this on the slight of a turn. These are people who dedicated their livelihoods, who dedicated their hearts and their expertise to safeguarding the health of all Americans. And now we are compromised, not just from a health and well-being standpoint, but from a national security standpoint. What's going to happen when the next outbreak
let me just real quick play this,
because
Scott seems to think that RFK Jr., who says things like this, is more credible than people who have degrees.
I literally didn't say
in
that.
the subject.
But watch, I didn't say.
But watch,
why are you
watch
saying
this
I said
clip.
that? I didn't say that.
When I was a kid, and I know what a healthy child is supposed to look like. I'm looking at kids as I walk through the airports today, as I walk down the street, and I see these kids that are just overburdened with mitochondrial challenges, with inflammation. You can tell from their faces, from their body movements, and from their lack of social connection.
Facts.
And I know that that's not how our children are supposed to look.
Science. Hashtag science.
This is why Aziz Shah said, this is wacky, flat earth, voodoo stuff. Please, Peter Hotez, please send a few introductory biology textbooks to the Department of HHS. I mean, look, the reason, Scott, I said what I said is because rather than you seriously answering a question about the real concerns that were raised by these officials about the bending of science to the will of that guy, you decided that the most important thing to you was their lack of credibility because they used the word people. I mean, I just think I understand the rhetoric and the political.
You realize that you're accepting some politicization of science, but not others, right?
What's the politicization of science that's been accepted?
Can men get pregnant or not?
Scott,
if you're in the CDC and you believe that, I'm saying you're not a terribly credible person.
The CDC that is responsible for the health and well-being of the nation.
That has absolutely nothing
to
do with
it does.
It signals that you, as a scientist, are willing to be politically correct. One of my favorite quotes from Carl is this: "It's far better to grasp the universe as it really is than to persist in delusion, however satisfying and reassuring." And these public officials here, when they are being politically correct, it means that they are willing to reassure people just to satisfy them.
Because it's a question of whether your scientists are going to politicize or not, and you accept some and not others.
To do with the conversation that we are having.
That's just the
I disagree. It's a credibility.
Why would we do that when people have died and are dying? Why would we do that when people's children are being dehumanized
in this country about real things, when everything just becomes about buzzwords
or political
I don't understand why you're rejecting this criticism of someone's credibility.
because I think that what matters to people in their homes is whether or not they know what immunizations their child should have, which, by the way, immunizations have saved so many lives.
I'm not disagreeing with you about that. I agree.
What matters to them around the world is not what words are being used
I think it does matter,
by people.
Because it tells me what kind of person
it is whether or not they can trust that the guy who's making decisions about their health actually knows what a mitochondria is.
Yes. And when we focus on, imbecilic things such as that, that's why people are then subject to misinformation and disinformation, and they resort to violence, Scott. There was just a police. It's not violence. This is not a laughing. There was a shooting at the CDC.
There's attacks on ICE agents every day. Who's responsible for that? You seem to reject the idea that violence was being incited before.
There are people rejecting the fact that people are
now you're blaming this.
I think
it is.
Scott, you guys cherry pick these things like
we don't cherry
pick.
pick.
Hold on a second, Scott. There's nobody who is justifying attacks against ICE officials.
Oh yeah, Scott Jennings is he's the one that's cherry picking, even though he didn't bring up all the recent school shootings that have happened in the last couple of years and the demographic that's doing those. Okay, all right.
Nobody should justify or diminish somebody shooting hundreds of bullets into a workplace where people
are trying to save lives, where people are practicing public health.
So I don't understand why that would even be a comparison that you would make, honestly.
Because it's a great way to not answer the question.
Well,
excellent way.
Guys, we're way over our time here.
What question? Thousands of doctors, hundreds of thousands of doctors who probably don't use words that you don't like, who agree on the science. The science is settled when it comes to autism and vaccines. Definitely. They have nothing to do with each other.
Definitely.
Less than 1% of scientists suggest that there might be a link.
Okay, this lady here that doesn't know what science means, or she doesn't know what settled means. And speaking of being settled, I thought the definition of a vaccine was settled, but apparently it wasn't, because that was changed, 3 or 4 years ago? I don't know what I would say to this lady. I think she came on here to make a case for more funding for public libraries because clearly she didn't have access to books as a child.
You seem to be very angry with me. I fundamentally agree with you.
No, but why do we have to get derailed by this political BS when you could just say, that's garbage and we shouldn't politicize science?
Because some scientists are allowed to politicize things and some aren't.
No.
And it depends on your politics, and that's how
that's
we do
not
it.
true.
That is very much not true.
That's not
100%
true.
Here we
are.
Thank you for saying that.
I want to play for what one of those officials said tonight, speaking to Caitlin Collins in the last hour, about what he saw was happening at the agency that he just left, the CDC.
The people that have been installed by Secretary Kennedy are full of ideology and bias that will actually contaminate the science. So I think that we have evidence that this is coming. And I think that the other part that we're seeing is that decisions are being made and data is being retrofitted to be able to address the decision.
I just realized this guy looks like Flash's teacher from The Incredibles.
Coincidence? I think not.
Ooh, he should go work for the health insurance company that Mr. Incredible got fired from. I'm sure he'd do well there. In fact, he's probably working for health insurance companies already.
The direction that the country's public health is going is not one that is evidence-based or science-based, which is why our resignations are really together are trying to raise a red flag for everyone.
This last part of the video is going to be really quick. We're going to go over some data. This is where I try and earn your subscription. This is where I try and set myself apart from just your average political reaction channel. I'm hoping you'll stick around for it and learn something. If not, it's cool. Just leave me a like on your way out. Let's go. I want to show you something, and this is really important. They didn't share this information on CNN or anywhere in the mainstream media, and this is because they know that if they shared this information, people would start supporting Kennedy. On Wednesday, the Food and Drug Administration approved updated COVID boosters, but removed emergency use authorizations. What this does is it changes who pays for the COVID vaccine. What we don't want is we do not want our insurance rates skyrocketing next year because we're paying for a bunch of vaccines that are completely unnecessary, which, by the way, are $150 per shot if you pay with cash, which means your insurance company is likely paying double that. You can completely remove the idea that the mRNA vaccine could be harmful for children. Just get rid of that. Let's just pretend that it's entirely benign. Why is it that you believe our insurance companies, meaning us, should have to pay for medicine that is not necessary? Well, one of the reasons is because they lie. They make you think it's necessary. An analysis of data collected by HHS found that 11,199 children were admitted to the hospital with COVID during 2024 and 25 respiratory virus season. 7,746 of whom were under the age of 5 years old. Why did they not mention deaths at all in this? So here's the sneaky part. Now check this out. 11,198 children were admitted to the hospital with COVID during the 2024-25 respiratory virus season. Do you know how many children are admitted to the hospital each year? Over 6 million, which means statistically that number should be higher if it was a problem, just because if you send 6 million kids in the hospital at any given time of day with a boo-boo on their knee, at least 12,000 of them should have COVID just based on the number of people that get COVID during the season. The decision to exclude healthy people who are pregnant means infants under 6 months no longer would have protection despite having COVID hospitalization rates similar to people ages 65 to 74. What are those hospital rates? Why did you leave that out? Why did you leave out how many of these infants died because of COVID? Probably because that information would argue against your case. It's perfectly reasonable to be paranoid when you have a newborn baby. Of course, they're going to be bringing them in when they have the sniffles. You just need to ask yourself this: is this profit-seeking behavior or is this public health-seeking behavior?